The first time I saw her, I forgot to breathe. Not in the poetic sense people use when they see something beautiful. I literally stopped breathing, as if my body had decided that inhaling could wait until I understood what I was looking at. She stood at the far end of the docking bay on Helios Station, surrounded by a ring of armed security officers who were trying very hard to look calm. She was small, smaller than any human adult, her frame delicate, her posture upright with a quiet confidence that didn't belong to someone who had just arrived from a ship no one on Earth could identify. Her skin shimmered like moonlight on water. Not metallic, not glowing, something subtler. A living surface that caught the harsh white station lights and bent them into soft halos. Her eyes were entirely silver, with no visible pupils. And yet I knew she was looking directly at me. I was an engineer, not a diplomat, not a soldier. I was there because Helios Station needed someone to monitor the power fluctuations caused by the alien vessel's arrival. I should have been staring at readouts. Instead, I was staring at her. She tilted her head slightly. And then, to the shock of everyone in the bay, she walked straight toward me. The officers raised their weapons, but she lifted one hand, palm outward, a universal sign of peace. Her steps were soundless. When she reached me, she stopped less than a meter away. The crowd behind the glass partitions had gone silent. The hum of machines felt suddenly too loud. She looked up at me. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, and spoke in a voice that was not mechanical, not robotic, but somehow translated directly into my mind. "Why are you staring?" The question hit me harder than it should have. Everyone else was staring too, of course. But she had chosen me. My mouth opened, closed. My heart hammered like an overworked reactor. And then I said the one answer she didn't expect. "Because I'm terrified I'll blink and you'll disappear." The silver of her eyes shifted, like mercury stirred by a spoon. "You believe I am unreal?" "No," I said quickly. "I believe reality just expanded faster than my brain can handle." For the first time since she arrived, the tension in the room changed. Not gone, but different. Curious. "I am called Sail," she said. "I have crossed 12 star folds to reach this place. I require a liaison." One of the station officials finally pushed forward. "We can provide." Sail lifted a hand again, silencing him, without words. Her silver eyes remained fixed on me. "I choose him." And just like that, my life stopped being ordinary. They cleared a quiet room for us. The officials and scientists watched through one-way glass. A dozen military officers argued in whispers outside. I sat across a polished steel table from a being who had crossed the galaxy to stand here. Sail folded her hands neatly in front of her. "You were not afraid to answer me honestly," she said. "That is why I chose you." "I was terrified," I admitted. "I just answered anyway." Courage is not the absence of fear. It is motion despite fear. I blinked. "Did you just quote human philosophy?" "I studied your transmissions for 23 of your years," she said. "Your literature, your debates, your entertainment. You broadcast your species loudly into the void. That seems reckless in hindsight." "Yes," she agreed simply. I swallowed. "So, why are you here?" Sail's gaze drifted toward the ceiling, as if she were looking through the station and into space itself. "My people are called the Volari. We do not conquer. We observe, we learn, and when necessary, we intervene." "Intervene in what?" "In endings." That word settled between us like a gravity well. "Earth," Sail continued, "is approaching a critical threshold. Your technology advances faster than your unity. Your weapons outpace your wisdom. Your world is nearing a fracture event." I leaned back, exhaling slowly. "You're saying we're on track to destroy ourselves?" "Yes." There was no judgment in her voice, just statement. So you came to save us? Sail tilted her head again. Would you accept salvation if you did not choose it yourself? I don't know.
Precisely, she said.
For the next hours, she explained. Not with diagrams or lectures, but with images placed directly into my thoughts. Cities swallowed by rising seas. Satellites burning in atmospheric storms. Artificial minds turning against confused creators. 1,000 futures branching like crystal. But there were other branches too. Cleaner worlds. Shared knowledge. Peaceful expansion into the stars. Your species stands before a door, Sail said. My people guard the corridor beyond. But we do not open doors for those unwilling to walk. I rubbed my temples. So, what do you want from me? You stare not only with fear, but with wonder. Wonder leads to questions. Questions lead to growth. I require someone to ask humanity's questions back at itself. You want me to be what? A translator? A philosopher? A messenger? Sail's silver eyes glowed softly. Yes. In the days that followed, everything changed. News of Sail's arrival leaked within hours. Crowds gathered outside Helios Station. Governments demanded meetings. Religious leaders proclaimed signs and omens. Markets trembled. Militaries repositioned. And through it all, I sat across from Sail each day talking. She learned quickly. She laughed once when I showed her a recording of a human comedy show. She stared in confusion at sports. She loved music, particularly orchestral pieces that made her skin shimmer in ripples of reflected sound. In return, she taught me fragments of Valari knowledge. Not technology, never direct instructions, but concepts, ways of thinking, methods of solving conflicts through layered empathy, systems of shared decision-making that avoided domination. Eventually, world leaders gathered for the first formal meeting with Sail. They wanted treaties, technology, assurances. She turned to me before stepping into the conference hall. You will speak first, she said. I froze. I'm not qualified. You are honest, she replied. That is rarer. I walked into a room filled with power, presidents, generals, corporate magnates, scientists. Cameras broadcast the moment to billions. My voice shook at first, then steadied. She did not come to give us answers, I said. She came to ask if we're ready to grow into them. Some scoffed. Some leaned forward, listening. Sail stood beside me, small and luminous, silent and patient. One general finally spoke. If your people can prevent our destruction, we demand assistance. Sail's gaze hardened. We do not answer demands, she said. We respond to choice. A scientist asked, what must we choose? Sail spread her hands. Unity over division. Responsibility over ambition. Curiosity over fear. A politician laughed bitterly. You expect the human race to agree on anything? Sail looked at him. I expect nothing, she said. I observe potential. The room went silent. That night, I walked with Sail through a quiet corridor of the station. Earth hung below us in the observation window, a blue-white marble spinning in darkness. You understand them, I said. I understand individuals, she corrected. Species are more complex. Will you leave if we fail? Yes. The simplicity of her answer hurt. And if we succeed, then we will walk together into the greater community. I stared at Earth, my home, my chaotic, brilliant, self-destructive species. What happens to me in all this? I asked. Sail turned toward me. You asked why I came. Now I ask you, why do you stay? I opened my mouth, closed it, thought of my small apartment, my quiet life, my job fixing machines no one thought about unless they broke. And then I understood. Because I'm terrified I'll blink and everything important will disappear, I said. And I don't want to be someone who just watched it happen. Sale's silver eyes softened. That, she said, is the answer I hoped for. Months passed. Sale's presence changed global conversation. Nations that once refused to speak began to sit at shared tables. Not out of altruism, but out of realization. If humanity failed, it would do so under the watchful eyes of the universe. Not everyone accepted it. There were protests, violence,
conspiracy theories,
attempts on Sale's life that failed without her lifting a finger, her people's unseen technology quietly preventing harm. And through it all, she never imposed, never commanded, only asked questions. Why do you hate those different from you? Why do you cling to power that isolates you? Why do you believe resources are finite when cooperation expands them? Slowly, painfully, the species began to shift, not into a utopia, but into something less fractured, more aware. One evening, Sale and I returned to the docking bay where we first met. Her vessel awaited, smooth as a river stone carved by time. "It is time," she said. I felt my throat tighten. "You're leaving."
"For now," she said.
"My people have seen your choice begin. That is enough. What if we fail after you go?" "Then you will rise again," she said. "Failure is not the end of growth." I hesitated. "Will I see you again?" Sale regarded me silently, then stepped closer. "When your species stands among the stars as equals, I will greet you once more." I swallowed. That could take centuries. "Time," she said, "is less heavy than you believe." I laughed softly. "You know, you never did answer my first question." "What question?" "Why you asked me why I was staring." Sale's eyes shimmered, brighter than ever. "Because," she said, "I wanted to know if your gaze held fear alone or possibility." She turned, walking toward the vessel. Light unfolded around her like petals opening to dawn. Before she vanished into it, she looked back one final time. "Do not blink too long, human," she said. "Reality expands quickly." And then she was gone. Years later, children would learn about the arrival in school. They would study the day the sky spoke back. They would argue whether Sale saved humanity or merely forced it to look in a mirror. As for me, I continued to work, not on Heliostation anymore, but in global initiatives bridging nations, minds, and cultures. A quiet architect of cooperation, always asking questions, always staring a little longer than comfort allowed. Because once, an alien girl had asked why I was staring, and I had given the one answer she didn't expect. In return, she gave humanity a question it could no longer ignore. Who do you choose to become? I never saw Sale again. Not in my lifetime, at least. Years rolled forward the way tides reshape coastlines, slowly, relentlessly, sometimes violently. Humanity didn't transform overnight. There were still wars, still greed, still cruelty. But something fundamental had shifted the day the Volari girl stood in our docking bay and asked a simple question. "Why are you staring?" People remembered that question. They quoted it, turned it into slogans, painted it on walls. Some mocked it, some worshipped it, but no one forgot it. Because deep down, we all knew what it really meant. Why are you witnessing the universe instead of participating in it? I became less of an engineer and more of a builder of bridges, political ones, cultural ones, scientific ones. I traveled constantly. I listened more than I spoke. I asked the questions Sale taught me to ask. Why must someone lose for you to win? Why do you fear those you do not understand? Why do you cling to the familiar when the unknown is calling? Not everyone liked those questions. But questions are seeds. They grow quietly in the mind. They crack open assumptions. They force light into sealed rooms. Decades passed. Humanity stepped onto Mars not as competing flags, but as a shared mission. Fusion energy replaced fossil wars. Artificial minds were regulated by consensus instead of secrecy. Global councils formed, not perfect, but functional. Fragile.
Growing.
Still, no sign of sail. No Volari ship. No silver-eyed watchers. Sometimes I wondered if she had ever truly come, or if she had been some impossible dream shared by billions. But I never doubted her, because I had answered her once, honestly, and that answer had changed everything. I grew old. My hands shook. My knees protested stairs. My hair thinned and silvered, though not in the luminous way Sail's eyes once had. I retired to a small home overlooking an ocean that had been slowly reclaimed from rising tides, a victory wrestled from catastrophe. One evening, as the sun sank into molten gold, a young girl sat beside me on the porch. My granddaughter. She couldn't have been more than 6. She looked up at me, serious and curious. "Grandpa," she asked, "is it true you met the alien girl?" I smiled.
Yes.
"It's true." "Why did she come?" I thought about that for a long time. "She came to ask us who we wanted to become." The girl swung her legs off the chair. "Did we answer?" I looked out at the horizon. Cargo ships powered by clean reactors. Wind farms turning in the distance. Satellites glinting above. "Not completely," I said. "But we're still answering." She nodded thoughtfully. Then she did something that startled me. She stared at the sky. Really stared. The way I once had. Wide-eyed. Unblinking. As if expecting someone to step out of the stars at any moment. I chuckled softly. "Why are you staring?" I asked her. She thought for a moment. "Because," she said, "I'm afraid I'll blink and miss something important." My breath caught. The same answer. The same fear. The same wonder. The cycle continued. That night, I dreamed. I stood once more in the heliostocking bay. The lights were bright. The air was humming. And there she was again, small, luminous, silver-eyed.
Sail.
She approached me, just as before. "Why are you staring?" she asked. This time I smiled. "Because," I replied, "I wanted to see how the story ended." Her eyes shimmered, softer than moonlight. "Stories do not end," she said. "They evolve." "Did we pass?" I asked. Sail stepped aside. Behind her, I saw ships. Human ships. Vast, elegant, starbound. Not weapons. Explorers. Bridges to the unknown. "You began," she said. "That is all any species can do." I felt tears in my eyes. "Will I see you again?" Sail leaned forward, touching her luminous forehead gently to mine. "When your children stand among the stars," she whispered, "you will be there in them." Light unfolded. Warmth. Silence. I did not wake the next morning. My granddaughter found me peaceful in my chair, facing the sunrise. She cried. Then she looked at the sky again. And somewhere deep inside her, a question took root. Centuries later, when humanity's first interstellar vessel crossed the threshold of a distant system, its crew recorded something unexpected waiting in orbit. A small craft, smooth as river stone, and a figure within. Silver eyes, shimmering skin, a familiar voice greeting them across the void. "We have been watching," Sail said. "Welcome, children of Earth." And somewhere, in whatever place stories go when their tellers fade, I smiled. Because once, an alien girl had asked why I was staring. And I had given the one answer she didn't expect. The answer that taught a species how to keep looking forward.